3. Gender. Gender inequality is a massive issue in sport as there are many different ways that there is a big difference between men and women's sports. One of these being stereotypes and traditions. They can also include a pay gap, socialization, and a supposed skill between men and women's sport. Historically, women's sport only started in the 19th century, and by the end of the 19th century, horse riding, archery, golf, tennis, skiing, and skating were being enjoyed among women only in the upper class. The first time that women could compete in the modern Olympics was the Second Olympics in 1900. In the first Olympics, it was only 3 male Greek citizens that were able to compete and participate in the first modern Olympics, as well as the ancient Olympic Games. Women's football was banned by the FA as it was seen as an unsuitable sport for females. This has all changed towards the end of the 1960s, where the Women's FA was formed in 1969, and in the 3 years of it beginning, the first Women's FA Cup final was played, as well as the England International Women's match had been played also. Women were affected the most by this late start and didn't enjoy sport as they didn't have the freedom to play whichever sport they wished. Women started playing sport late due to it being thought as a non-ladylike thing. Things have changed now, but there are still issues within the sport revolving around gender. One of these things is being stereotypes and traditions revolved around sport. For example, dance is thought to be a girl's sport, and any men that did dance are instantly perceived as gay by others. Also, men are thought to be stronger and faster than women when this isn't always the case. These stereotypes and traditions limit males and females to sports they wish to participate in, because they often feel like they have to maintain an image of the typical male or female to keep the reputation of the gender without letting it down and embarrassing themselves. When this should not be the case at all, it still is. For example, if women want to play rugby, they are thought to be a tomboy by others around them. Gender issues in sport happen because of the history it has where only men have a variety of sports, and the fact that women weren't allowed to play sports until later than men. Things nowadays have become a lot more inclusive for both genders and still can become massively improved on the equality side of it, because whilst women can play all sports now, they don't have such big things like getting paid, especially in football. Men earn significantly more money than women do in sport, especially football. Governing bodies of women's football are trying to make the two different genders equal in their respective sport, because it isn't fair how unequal a lot of the factors in sport are. For example, there should be more opportunities for women's football and also much less of a pay gap between women's and men's football. An example of a sport with no pay gap is tennis. For example, the winners of Wimbledon, men and women, win the exact same amount of prize money. Another issue with gender inequality is a difference in exposure from the media. Men's football gets a lot more exposure in newspapers and TV adverts, and newspaper adverts, and coverage, which means that the less money goes into women's football than the men's football, because they have less fans and tickets sold because of the media itself. I recommend that media advertise women's sport a lot more, as it's very enjoyable to watch and to participate in, and it should be exposed to more and wider variety of people across the world, especially UK. Also, women should be paid a lot more than they do because of the difference there is, and it's not fair at all in football, because some individual man, male footballer earns the same amount every year as the whole league does in a whole season from women's football, and women's football should receive a lot more sponsorships than they do, so they have more access to equipment and travelling